Hello, welcome along to Sportsbet TV with Paul Alster here with your racing selections ahead of Wednesday, the 28th of July, where I'm going to be making 4 recommendations of horses at pretty big prices across the meetings at Glorious Goodwood and the Galway Festival. Well, I'm going to be giving you those tips for both Glorious Goodwood and Galway. But of course, day one has been a bit of a washout as far as my tips are concerned. Washed out as much by the rain as anything else, because the going at Goodwood has turned absolutely bog-like. And 3 of my 4 suggestions are non-runners. The only one that is running is going to be Neath Road in the Gold Cup at 50 to 1 each way. So let's hope that he manages to handle conditions. Now, I have seen the first race already this afternoon. I saw there were a couple of horses broke away towards the stand side. Hard to know whether or not that was a smart move or not. They didn't finish that far behind, but it's going to make punting really, really tricky this week, I think, at Goodwood. Now, I just wanted to say about the situation when you have so many non-runners. I can't recall ever having had 3 non-runners out of 4. So I decided to go onto my bookmaker's website and try and find out what the rule is. Because in the old days, if you had non-runners, your stakes all went on to whatever horses were still running. And of course, that was something that contributed towards the huge betting coup in 1974 at Cartmel, the Gay Future affair, which if you don't know about it, have a look on Google or read the book. In which Tony Collins' horse was the only one of 3 that were bet in doubles and trebles. The other 2 never left their stables, which meant that all the money went on to Gay Future, who actually turned out to be a ringer that switched horses. And there was only one telephone on the racecourse at Cartmel in those days, and they blocked the phone line so that the bookmakers couldn't lower the odds on course. Because the offices at which those bets had been placed couldn't get a phone call back to the racecourse. So it was an extraordinary event in which it was a huge coup, and there was a massive trial as well after it, quite understandably. So since then, and over the period of years and decades, things have changed. Now, you'll probably see here up on screen the rule that I found on my particular bookmaker's site, which I assume is going to be the same if you've placed a Yankee or a round robin or a lucky 15, as I did each way. And the rule is that, quote, if you place an accumulator, the line related to the non-runner will be void. You will receive your stake for that line back. The rest of the lines in the accumulator will stand. So that means, for example, in my each way lucky 15, all the bets on everything other than the single each way on Neath Road will be refunded. So it was a 50 pence each way lucky 15 just for a little bit of interest. So I shall get 14 quid credited back to my account. And I'm afraid all I've got is going to be the 50 pence each way running onto Neath Road. I'll be interested to know if any bookmakers that you happen to bet with are offering different terms. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because it is quite confusing when you get so many non-runners. Now, I'm hoping that on Wednesday, my 4 are going to run, and I've specifically zoomed in on horses that I believe will handle heavy ground. The first is at Goodwood in the 225, which is the Group 3 fillies and mares contest over 7 furlongs, 17 runners declared at the time of this recording. And it looks like the bookmakers and punters don't have a clue, because they're betting 6 to 1 the field in a Group 3 race, which is like a big handicap race. Now, amongst the market leaders are Sacred, trained by William Haggis, who I'll be surprised if it handles the ground. There's the Irish raider Valerina Messalina, which actually you would think coming from Ireland it would love the mud, but all its best form is on a sound surface, so I'd have to be worried about that one. And there's Var Dream for Charlie Fellows and Jamie Spencer, who was 3rd on soft ground in the Group 3 Jersey Stakes at Royal Ascot last month, and then finished 2nd on good ground in the Group 3 York Summer Stakes over 6 furlongs, where it stayed on, and it's rated 106. So I could see this one running well for Charlie Fellows. But my selection is actually Charlie Fellows' other runner, ONASSIS, trained by Charlie, and the mount of Hayley Turner, one of the greatest ever female riders. Now, ONASSIS is a particularly good conveyance on a soft surface, indeed on heavy ground. He's 2 out of 3 on soft or heavy ground. And this 4-year-old filly by de Barwe won the 2020 Sandringham Stakes at Royal Ascot on soft ground off a mark of 81 over a mile. So she'll certainly stay and she'll certainly handle the ground. She went on last season to win a listed race at Chantilly in France on good ground, and then she ended the term winning at Goodwood over the course and distance, 7 furlongs in heavy ground, winning the listed October Stakes. So she's a course and distance winner. She stays and she loves the ground. Now, she had 8 months off after that October run and wasn't seen again until running in the Group 2 Duke of Cambridge Stakes at Royal Ascot just last month, finishing 10th or 12th there, but it was good to firm, which wouldn't have suited her, but it will have blown the cobwebs away. And she did much better last time out when 4th of the 10 runners on good ground in that same 6-furlong race at York, in which her stable companion came second, Vadream. Now, I think that ONASSIS will possibly be even better suited than Vadream by the very, very testing ground. And because of that, even though she's rated a pound inferior to Vadream, I think she is the one to be on. Now, quite a lot of bookmakers are playing fairly cautiously on ONASSIS, but I see that Bet365 standing out here at 11 to 1 each way for 4 places, and that'll do for me. So my first selection will be ONASSIS. Hopefully we'll get rich from ONASSIS here. 11 to 1 each way, 4 places in the 225 at Goodwood on Wednesday. And then I take you on to the 3 o'clock at Goodwood, which is the 5-furlong Group 3 Moulcombe Stakes for 2-year-olds. 11 runners in heavy ground. And even though it's only 5 furlongs, it will seem quite a long way for these juvenile sprinters, and a lot of them are going to struggle on the ground. Now, Fearby is the horse that is likely to go off favourite for Edward Bethell, who trains up in Yorkshire. Took over from his dad, James Bethell, of course, last season. And he's done wonderfully well with this Fearby, who won at Sandown in the listed Dragon Stakes by 5 lengths on good to soft last time out. So the horse clearly handles some cut in the ground. But will it be quite as effective in heavy ground? That is the question, and that's why I wouldn't want to be taking too short a price. Now, another horse who's already proved itself very talented this season is Eve Johnson-Horton's Chipotle, who won the Brocklesby on the opening day of the season at Doncaster. It then won at Ascot in April on good to firm ground. It won the listed Windsor Castle Stakes at Royal Ascot, and then never got any sort of a run last time out at Newbury a few weeks ago in the Super Sales Sprint, the really valuable race, when it finished 9th of 22 and would have been very much closer with a clear run. Now, the only time Chipotle disappointed was in the National Stakes at Sandown in May, when it finished only 6th of 7. And that was the only time it encountered really soft ground. So I am a bit worried about Chipotle being able to handle the heavy. Now, given all of the above, I'm sticking my neck out here with a really long-priced horse. And I'm picking this horse because I'm taking you all the way back to 1985, when a horse called Hot Bee won this very race in heavy ground for a trainer called John Bridger. And John Bridger runs a horse here called ARBOY Will. Now, when Hot Bee won the race, it was 100 to 1. ARBOY Will be ridden on Wednesday by Kieran O'Neill. And I think this could be a great story because John Bridger is now nearly 80. He's really cracking on, but he's a very good trainer of sprinters, always has been. And he picked up this ARBOY Will. We're not quite sure of how much, but it was unsold at just 1,500 guineas. It's by a sire called Ardart and is very unfashionably bred. Now, Bridger's horses always tend to be unconsidered, so it was no surprise to see ARBOY Will unconsidered on debut at Windsor, because the trainer doesn't normally have first-time out winners, first of all, and secondly, because there were some well-bred sorts up against it. But what do you know? ARBOY Will, the bargain basement horse, won at Windsor on its debut, 5 furlongs, good ground, at 150 to 1. Now, a lot of people would say, well, that must have been an absolute fluke. But the 3rd and the 4th have both won since. And the 6th horse, Dig 2, has won twice since and went on to finish second in the Windsor Castle Stakes, just behind Chipotle, at Royal Ascot. So on that alone, ARBOY Will has to kind of be taken seriously. Now, it had its next run back at Windsor, but it was on good to firm, and it finished third there to a horse called Canonised, but it was conceding £8, and it didn't get a clear run that day, so it was far from disgraced, even though there were only 4 runners. And Canonised is well fancied for a later race on Wednesday, by the way, at Goodwood. And then, and this is the most significant point of all with this ARBOY Will, and this is why I'm trying to make a case for a horse that's going to be big odds. At Lingfield, just recently on July the 7th, 3 weeks ago, in heavy ground, in a 5-furlong nursery handicap, ARBOY Will gave £16 and a length and 3/4 beating to its rivals there. It won really comfortably. Now, I'm surprised it's still only rated 88. But remember, John Bridger won this with a horse that nobody considered back in 1985 when Tyrone Williams, who died only recently, won on the 100 to 1 shot Hot B. Now, a lot of the better horses with better, well, arguably better form, but on a sounder surface will be much shorter prices. But I wouldn't want to take a short price about anything this week at Goodwood in this ground. And so ARBOY Will offered at 33 to 1. And the best price again, each way, is with Bet365. Many others are going 28 to 1 on the early betting. I wouldn't be surprised if it drifts out. So try and get on with a bookmaker that'll give you the SP if it proves to be bigger. But maybe people will pick up on ARBOY Will. And on my theory of why I think it could run very well, it'll show a lot of speed and it will probably keep going to some degree in the closing stages, hopefully to at least hang on for a place, maybe spring a big surprise. And it would be a wonderful story if John Bridger could repeat the feat 36 years after Hot B stunned the racing world. So ARBOY Will for me, each way 33 to 1 in the second race, in the 3 o'clock race, at Goodwood on Wednesday, the Malcolm Stakes. And then my third selection is actually in the 4:10 race, which is a 5-furlong 2-year-old fillies condition stakes. I haven't tipped in the Sussex Stakes because I think despite the ground, Poetic Flair is probably going to prove hard to beat, but it'll be a very short price and I won't want to get involved. So the Goodwood 4:10, 5-furlong 2-year-old fillies conditions race, 10 runners, and the aforementioned Canonised, who beat ARBOY Will at Windsor, is likely to be amongst the market leaders, having won 3 out of its 5 races, and it's a really solid performer, but it's never run on ground worse than good, and because of that, I wouldn't be rowing in with William Haggas's filly. I think Flotus is a more likely sort at the head of the market for the Crisfords and Frankie Dettori. It won over 6 furlongs at Goodwood on soft ground on its debut, and it's also finished 6th in the Group 2 last time out, so it will handle the ground and stay, and I think that is probably the most likely amongst the market leaders. There's also one called Illustrating, which I tipped at Royal Ascot in the Queen Mary, where it finished 7th to Quick Susie of the 21 runners. Ran very well, especially as it later transpired it had lost a shoe about a furlong from home. It had previously really impressed on its debut at Catterick, and if it handles the ground, then Illustrating is one to seriously consider. But I was really impressed with a filly that made its debut at Beverley just 2 weeks ago. It's called FEILE and is trained by Richard Fahey in Yorkshire and is the mount of former champion jockey Paul Hannigan. It cost £25,000 as a yearling. It's by a claim. It has a pretty decent pedigree, and it made its debut at Beverley on July the 13th on soft ground in a novices stakes. Now, there were plenty in the race with experience, and as soon as FEILE missed the break and was some way behind the field, you could easily be forgiven for thinking that Connections would be more than happy if it managed to just pass a few in the closing stages. But despite having missed the break, and despite running green, it started to pick up a little bit at halfway, and when it was shaken up at the 2 furlong from home marker, it started to make ground only to find its route blocked. So it was switched out to the stand side up the stiff finish at Beverley, and as the ones in front began to get a little tired in the soft ground, this FEILE relished the underfoot conditions and really changed gear, and it stayed on really strongly in the closing stages to get up, and in the end it won cleverly. I saw that race live that day and I thought, this horse must be pretty useful. Now, they're going down to Goodwood. They know what they're up against. Richard Fahey is so shrewd. I think he believes the soft ground at Goodwood, the heavy ground, is not going to be a problem. And he's prepared to take on horses with better form because he thinks that the FEILE is highly progressive. And at the time of recording, 9-1 each way for 4 places is available with Sky Bet, which looks to be a pretty good bet to me. 9-1 also offered for 3 places with the likes of Sporting Index, Betway, 888, William Hill's Unibet, and Betfred. Now, it's possible it may drift because people often underrate the northern maiden or novice forms. So again, try and go with a bookmaker that's going to offer you the starting price if it's bigger, if you can, but 9-1, I think, a fair price for La FEILE in the 410 race at Goodwood. And then I take you on to my final selection for Wednesday, which is over at the Galway Festival, where as of Tuesday afternoon, when we're recording this, the going is forecast good to yielding. And we're talking about the Galway Plate Handicap Chase, the 6:15 at Galway, €250,000 in prize money. What a handicap chase this is, 22 runners, and as you'd expect, all the big guns are represented, some of them multiply, including Willie Mullins, who has 6 runners. Joseph O'Brien throws 4 into the race. JP McManus, the great owner, has 5. Jigginstown have 3, including the mighty Sam Crow, the once great Sam Crow. Henry de Bromhead's got a couple. So there are so many with chances, so many will have been laid out for it because, of course, €250,000 is a hell of a lot of money in anybody's language. Now, Emmett Mullins may well saddle the favourite here in the Shunter, who is one of JP McManus's brigade of 5. And the Shunter has time and again landed punt after punt, including at the Cheltenham Festival. You may remember beating a horse I tipped at Kelso last season, and I tipped a horse at very big odds of David Pike, just got beat by the Shunter. Of course, it turned out that was a remarkable effort on those weight terms because the Shunter went on and landed plenty of big prizes after that. So he's probably going to be favourite, even though he's continued to climb up the weights. I'm not going to go through loads of these runners. I'm just going to take you to the one that I think has been well and truly targeted and laid out at this race for 12 months. And the horse is called Royal Rendezvous. He is trained by Willie Mullins and is the mount of Paul Townend. He's a 9-year-old, but for a 9-year-old, he's very lightly raced. He's only run 12 times, and he's won 6 of those 12, including at Galway back in 2018, where he landed a maiden hurdle. Now, he's mixed it with some really good horses over the years. 3rd in a Grade 1 novice chase on Boxing Day of 2019 to the very useful Notebook. He then went on to win a Grade 3 novice chase in March of 2020 over 2.5 miles in soft ground. And then later on last year, he came to this very race and he ran an absolute blinder. He was only 5th jumping the final fence, and then he came home with a real wet sail. And in the end, he only failed by 3/4 of a length to catch early doors in this race 12 months ago. He's gone up £7 for that. He was off 10 months after that race. He then had a quiet run round at Punchestown, when 11th of 24 in the Guinness Handicap Chase in April. And then they got him spot on for this, in my view, by running him over hurdles and not risking any rise in the handicap mark over fences. They ran him in a 2.25 mile conditions hurdle at Ballinrobe, and he won by 8 lengths at the end of May. So they've protected the handicap mark. They're just £7 higher than last season. And I think ever since he just got beat in this race last year, they have made it a mission to go one better this time around. And once again, good on them, but it's Bet365, who are getting quite a bit of publicity here on this bulletin, who are offering the best odds that I can see at this moment. That is 10-1 each way for 5 places for Royal Rendezvous in the Galway Plate at Galway, 6:15 on Wednesday. And I think that, in my humble opinion, Royal Rendezvous is going to take a bit of beating despite 21 high-quality handicap rivals. I think Willie Mullins has had his mince pies on this for quite some time. So those are my 4 for Wednesday. Let's hope that at least we get a run from all 4 and that they all give us a proper run for our money. And I, of course, will be back tomorrow with more selections for you across at day 3 of Goodwood and day 4 at Galway. So please join me, Paul Alster, for that next time tomorrow with more recommendations for you at Sportsbet TV. Bye-bye for now.